Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Artificial DM. Today, we're going to jump into another RPG horror story. When a game makes you dislike people you love, by Wanderven. When I first started playing D&D 3 years ago, it was 2nd edition, with a ranger with crap charisma and a party of 11. It was chaotic, sometimes even slow and boring. But I was willing to overlook the faults to finally be able to play a game I've wanted to play for over a decade with people I enjoyed being around. The people I played with were practically family. The one who invited me was pretty much my second mother, and they had been playing for many years with the same group. I have my issues with 2nd edition. The non-weapon proficiencies is too vast a list of narrow skills that really pressure players to choose either useful mechanics or fun roleplay skills. I have my issues with 5th edition too, but at the time, 2nd edition was my only option, and I was still learning the game in general. As a ranger, I could ignore most of the issues, but having low charisma meant that I played my character as kind of impersonable and distant. My first meeting had the halfling rogue literally glomping my character upon entering the camp, and when I shoved the rogue off, had my second mother's dwarf fighter shaking my ranger for being mean to her friend, and my second mother shaking me. Shortly after, the cleric put me in a hold spell to forcefully learn my secrets, and pestering to maintain the hold spell even as we were ambushed. So, despite being useful, when my ranger got possessed by a necromancer and I had to rush to make a new character, I opted for the charismatic bard approach. Well, I rolled terrible stats, an 8 strength, a 12 wisdom, that I had to lower further to a 10 in order to raise my intelligence to the minimum requirements for bards. My dex was nothing special, and my charisma was my only good stat. My random spells have not once been useful. My 2 random magical items are a +1 plate armor and a +1 battle axe, as opposed to an iron flask and a folding boat that my ranger rolled. I pretty much had to give both items away to members who can use them, as I can't really use them. Bards can only be half-elves or humans in 2nd edition. Stupid as floop. And since elves are enslaved in this campaign, the DM forced me to be a human. I chose non-weapon proficiencies that fit my character's background, rather than something I can use often, and the DM forgot to give me my starting gold, or let me choose additional languages. Essentially, this is a really scuffed bard, in an edition that makes bards naturally scuffed. But I was determined to handle it. Sure, the group was too large, too tight-knit, playing an edition that is unbalanced as hell. But again, I just want to play a game I love with the people I love. Surely that will get me through. Until the people start being a big problem. Which brings me to the cherry on top of the cake, the incident that has seriously been pissing me off for the past couple of sessions. Currently, we're in gnome country. My bard was introduced the same session that my second mother's fighter set off a magical nuke at a wizard's college and nearly TPK'd all of us. Because of that, I was never really introduced to the group. So I've just been treated as this person who joined them out of circumstance, rather than a proper member of the group. It's the middle of winter, so we spent about 6 months, and maybe 6 sessions, staying with the gnomes in their underground tunnels. Because gnomes are small, only the 3 smaller characters can explore while the rest of us are stuck in a root cellar, until we get a quest outside. Very boring, and means that I don't really get a chance to actually use my bardic talents even when we're around NPCs. We've recently discovered a narrow pit leading to the Underdark that has been letting nasty creatures out that have been attacking the gnomes. Because of how deep the pit is, and how narrow it is, the gnomes constructed a basket on a pulley that can lower us down. Very specifically, they informed us that the basket could only hold 2 at a time. The group agreed to pair up. Although the rogue and I both offered to go first, we paired up with different people. Most of the group wanted to pair up together with their longtime adventuring buddies, which really left me out. Thankfully, one of my friends had just joined the group, and since nobody wanted to team up with us, we teamed up together. The sentiment was then, let the 2 new disposable people go into the potentially dangerous black hole first. So we ended up being the first pair in the basket. But don't forget the rogue. The same excitable halfling who threw herself onto my ranger without any pretense or warning. She also wanted to go first, and instead of openly offering herself and her partner, she decided to sneak into the basket. I.e., wait till it started going down and jump in. So we have this quickly made basket that can hold only 2 people, already filled with 2 humans, and now this halfling just jumps from the edge into the basket as it's already being lowered. The force of her sends us all toppling out of the basket and careening down the dark pit from the near top. We dropped a torch down the pit earlier, and by the time it hit the bottom, we couldn't see the light. And now, we're falling. Trying to think quick, I use my staff and try to wedge it in between the walls of the pit. I roll a 2, and the staff goes tumbling into the dark. Luckily, we all manage to grab onto a wall before we hit the bottom, but it's too dark to see. A couple of us fall, but by this time, we're low enough that it doesn't kill us. The rogue and I both roll to feel around the floor and find something. I find the torch that we dropped, and the rogue finds my staff. I light the torch and look for my staff again, but can't find it. I ask the others if they have seen my staff, and the rogue denies having it. Remember, this is a halfling, and I'm a human. My quarterstaff isn't just gonna fit under her shirt, but the DM allows it. I try to bring this fact up out of character when the player playing the rogue whispers to my second mother that she's planning on selling it, and they both immediately shout at me for metagaming. So I spend 2 more turns looking for my staff with increased anxiety. The rogue tells me I can just find a new stick. The staff is important to my character's backstory. She came from a renowned family of singers, but suffers stage fright when singing. The staff was her birthright, but her family chose her younger sister over her, and so she stole it and ran away. It's white with a top that resembles a bass clef. I doodled an example of it in the margins of my character sheet when I first made my bard. I bring this fact up to her, minus some of the personal details, and she dismissively repeats that it's just a stick. Out of game, I describe the stick, pointing out that it's unique, and I would notice if she did try to sell it. Once more, I'm shouted at for metagaming, which I'm not even doing. I'm not making my character frisk down hers. In fact, my character is taking the rogue at her word, and wasting more turns looking for what I know isn't there. But I give in to the pressure, and eventually, follow the rest of the group into the unknown without my primary weapon. Stuff happens. I mostly have to just stay out of the way, and eventually, we have to flee from some baddies back up the pit. At the top, we enter combat, having to try and stop the enemies from escaping. My only other weapon is a blowgun, which I picked for flavor over practicality, as it's actually a blowgun disguised as a flute. So here I am, a very squishy bard, having to use a ranged weapon to stop things within melee range. It would be a perfect time for the rogue to toss me my staff, so I can actually be of any help, but she doesn't. Eventually the wizard sends an infestation down the pit, and someone covers the sides with oil. Session ends. Everyone packs up and leaves. 3 sessions later, I'm still without a weapon, and every weapon the gnomes try to craft for me ends up exploding somehow. In summary, I'm playing a game with too many people who have been playing for so long that it feels impossible to squeeze my way into their clique. I'm playing an edition that is overly complicated and a class that doesn't fare well in that edition with a character that is a mechanical failure. I feel like I've been playing solitaire and they've been playing Uno, but now someone has taken one of my cards. Overall, I'm having no fun anymore. I like the people, and I like being able to talk to them about this kind of stuff. But the moment we get into the game, I start feeling like the awkward friend of a friend who just sits at the fringe of the cool kid table. I've done my very best to make my sessions enjoyable for myself without any help, but a game shouldn't be this draining, and it shouldn't make me feel this negative towards people whom I genuinely love. I think I'm going to quit, but I don't know how. In the past 3 years, I've been a DM to multiple groups. Before COVID, I was supposed to start a campaign for an LGBT therapy group to help people explore and express themselves in a safe environment through roleplay. I have severe depression, but I force myself to get up at least once a week, clean the house, plan sessions, make some food, and give my players a night to have fun and express themselves, which is really fulfilling, and I get a lot of positive feedback from my players, but I do find myself missing being a player. Last year, my second mother's 17-year-old son started a Star Wars tabletop group, but that went horribly wrong after 2 sessions and never happened again. Recently, my second mother started rotating with me every other week, and she's hosting a 5th edition campaign for my usual group of players and myself. But now that is becoming very difficult to enjoy. I'm sure I'll post about both of those incidents at some point. Future spoiler alert. My last session of my second mother's campaign, I was left out so thoroughly that I started doing work on my tablet instead. OP, I really do hope that eventually you're able to find a game that you can be a player in, and with that, I would like to say a few words. If you are playing in a game, and you get to the point where you are disliking the people you're playing with, you either need to have a few words with these people, or quit the game. In this particular situation, I would recommend that OP leaves. 11 players is way too many. Maybe OP should check out Looking for Group or scan some games on Roll20. We're all people. We're all gonna butt heads. But this game should not get in the way of caring for the people that you love. If you enjoyed the story, please leave me a like, or subscribe if you want to hear more just like it. That's gonna do it for today. And until next time, hope you feel inspired.